Going to be joined by one of our guests in just a moment here, but I do want to remind you. Well, I'm not going to talk about my age too much today. Do you realize that if I had taken a government job when I was a young guy, I could be retiring later this year because a lot of government workers can retire at 55. So, all right, that tells you my age. Uh, I have a friend, she's turning 62 on July 26th. And I said, "Are you retiring?" And she said, "At the end of the year." And I said, "Why at the end of the year?" And she said, "Because then I can collect my vacation time in one lump sum." So I understand sometimes why people do those things. I do want to remind you if you've got long range plans and goals like that, you might want to drop by and see the good folks at Waddell and Reed right here in Twin Falls. They've been in business working in the investment side of things since 1937. One of the oldest firms in the country to offer mutual funds. In fact, Waddell and Reed owns and manages two mutual fund families, investing by a conservative nature. Now, if you wondered, do they know what they're doing? Once more, if you've been in business for 8 decades, that's a good sign you're doing something right. They take a planning approach and they like to look at each piece of the puzzle for a client, knowing that each and every one of you has different needs and goals. They'll help build proper expectations. Waddell and Reed helps people manage money, and Waddell and Reed takes planning personally. It's 824, Bill Colley on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 49. Here in the desert, the climate change seems to be well in force. So we're turning into what you might call a rainforest, although not a warm one like they have in South America or in the Congo, but a sort of chilly version of all of that. Steve Millington is also in the studio. We'll get started a little early here today. Steve is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, but he has a, a wide world view because in his line of work, he has to do a lot of reading and keep up with a lot of things. And you were just mentioning off air your take on North Korea because you pointed out some of the other recent military actions we've been involved in. You could have gone one way or another, but this one might be different.
This one probably is different. In the Tomahawk missile attack on Syria, that was a message of, hey, knock it off. We're not going to get in the middle of this thing, or at least we do not want to get in the middle of this thing, but knock that kind of stuff off. That crosses, oh, I hate to use this word, that crosses the red line, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's unacceptable stuff. And then the ISIS people think that they just can run with impunity and do whatever they want, and so they drop the Moab bomb, and poof, we can do this. The message is we can do this about any time we want, anywhere we want. Don't mess with us again. Now, with North Korea, we're dealing with a lunatic, a madman. He's stupid, crazy. So, it's not impossible to think that this dimwit could just start firing missiles willy nilly at anybody and everybody. And so the risk, in my opinion, which is the only one that matters, you see, my opinion is that North Korea is their wild card. They're goofy, and so we got to be real careful how we handle that. And I don't know how much conversation President Trump had with Xi Jinping from China when he was at in Mar-a-Lago or whatever it's called. Uh, but I hope they had some conversation about you better figure out how to get that guy under control because we can't continue to carry on with this goofy relationship. So that the North Korea thing really is a tense situation. That one could have really bad implications.
Yeah, I think that the question is if you have to have a confrontation, can you ensure that they don't get anything through our defense net
Yeah,
and hit the West Coast?
and that's critical, and all of this money that we've spent in defense spending and these simulated tests that they run out in the middle of the ocean and in faraway places and nobody's around and all of the generals look at it and say, yeah, that worked the way we wanted it to. But the engineer who put it all together, sitting in the back room, looks at it and says, "Holy cow, we were off by 2 seconds here, or this didn't go off exactly over there." And he's the guy I want to talk to, so that he can say, "Yeah, this thing works perfect. Let's away we go." And uh, we reached a new level of sophistication electronically in the world. So why can't they just do some electronic stuff over there and shut everything down? I mean, hello.
We may be shutting down the launches. That looks like it's a good
Um,
possibility.
you know, when I first read that, I thought to myself, that's not impossible that we had a satellite up there somewhere beaming down uh, neutrons, electrons,
Well, I just read last week the Pentagon has developed a laser, which we always thought was, uh,
Star
other
Wars stuff.
right, and that or they introduced a virus into their computer system. We got to take a short break. We've got more with
Really? Those short break guys, doggone it.
Steve Millington coming up in just a moment. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. We're at 47. It's 829. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX at newsradio1310.com. Once the rain stops, maybe in another week to 10 days, things will dry out quickly. We are, after all, in a desert. And you may be thinking about building that new dream house. I'm going to tell you right now that you need to be getting in touch with the folks at Western Visions Inc. Russell Smith, the founder of Western Visions Inc., he's got 2 decades not only in the home renovation business, and he does some beautiful work with a lot of historic structures, but he can build you your dream house from the ground up. And he'll work with you on drawing up a plan, and then he'll consult with you throughout the construction period. You could end up being in this dream home, gosh, by the end of summer. Wouldn't that be nice? Catch still a little bit of sunshine out on the deck before things come to an end. If you'd like to know more, we'd like you to check out Russell's website. That's western-visions.com, western-visions.com. Our guest in the studio, Steve Millington, is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and News Radio 1310.com. My voice is,
Holy cow. Stay with us,
I
Bill.
keep
Stay with
thinking
us.
the rain's going to wash all of the allergens out of the air, but not yet. 834, we're at 48. I just want to remind people who are listening this morning, we've been telling you, in order to stay in touch with us, your hearing is obviously important, and there are many choices available for hearing health care. We've been recommending Mount Harrison Audiology. Now, why would you choose Mount Harrison Audiology? Compassion. Dr. Christine Pickup and her staff pride themselves on caring for each individual with customized and personal treatment plans. Mount Harrison Audiology cares about your health goals and will work with you to provide the best care possible. Mount Harrison Audiology for your appointment today. The telephone number 208 312 0957. I was telling Steve during the break, tomorrow morning in the 9 o'clock hour, I believe today, I don't think it was yesterday, but I believe today, Brian Zollinger told me, he's, of course, a representative from over in Idaho Falls. He and Ron Nate had a news conference last week. They are going to file a suit, um, and they're from different caucuses, we should point out, within the Republican Party in the House. They're going to file a suit to try to change the 1978 case, which the governor used to veto the grocery tax repeal. And then after Brian is on with us, we're going to have Michelle Stennett from the Senate side, and she's a Democrat. They weren't happy with the veto either, but they're not going to go through with the lawsuit. So between Brian and Michelle, we're going to get a pretty good look at what's going on legislatively and what the plans are in the future on this.
There are more than two sides to the issue, but those two people will bring interesting perspectives from two different points of view on why the approach that they're using and what the expected outcome would be. Regarding the legal appeal that Zollinger and Ron Nate, and they are joined by Brian Smith, a Republican activist also from Idaho Falls.
He's been on the show before.
Yes. um, they will explain kind of what their push is. There is some question about does the definitionally, from a definition standpoint, how long does the governor have to sign a bill? And some say, everybody says, well, it's 10 days. And some people say, yeah, but is it 10 days from the date the legislature adjourns, or is it 10 days from the time the bill, the communication, actually arrives in the governor's office? And there's a 2-day lag in there. And so the 10 days from the legislative sine die. Sine die is just a great way of saying we're done for this season. We're all going home now. All items of business for this legislative season are finished. Sine die. No more. The other thing is, okay, he didn't get the bill the day the legislature adjourned. He got it 2 days later, which gave him until 1 week ago today. So he took his full time limit before he vetoed the bill. Well, these legislators are saying, wait a minute, the Constitution says thus, and that's what the approach that they're taking. Now, there was a bill in 1978, and the court ruled on that and said, wait a minute, it's 10 days from the time the governor actually gets the bill on his desk. And so that's the course, the precedent that Butch Otter took and said, okay, I have until this day to sign the bill. And you see, now we're playing games here. I can understand Otter's choice. Let's veto it. Do we have enough money? Are we going to get any federal disaster relief funds to help with the winter storms? Roads, everything washed out, you know, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So if we take all this money and do it in the form of grocery tax rebates, uh, actually it's going to be the suspension of taxes on groceries, then the state's ultimately going to end up losing about $80 million in total revenue. Well, it goes beyond that. There are spillover implications to most other governmental entities. For example, cities and counties and so forth. Some of that sales tax collection money comes flows through, if you will, and comes back to local entities like Twin Falls City, like Buell City, like Kimberly City, like Jerome City. It all kind of, not in huge amounts of money, but where they're all tied up so tight with their budgets and scratching for every penny they can get their hands
And they
on,
plan on it.
and suddenly it's gone. And so we were going to spend $100,000 on roads. We don't have it. Well, now what do we do? Oh, so that puts the onus back on the government, local government entities. Okay, we either have to cut spending or we have to increase our revenues from some other source. And you know what we do? We have mill levy override elections.
We've got more coming up with Steve Millington. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Short break. It's 8:40. Bill Colley with you on Top Story as well. It's 50. We wanted to point out our guest, Steve Millington, is here until 9 o'clock this morning. After the 9 o'clock news, we're going to be joined by Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Lobes. It's 50. You're listening to Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 8:43. Won't get much warmer today. Some people are still clicking on that furnace to try and keep warm. Your furnace has had a lot of work the last several months, and that may mean it's time for a bit of a tune-up. You need to call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley. They'll come out, they'll get the job done right, they'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free, cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Telephone number 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Steve Millington, there is a big news today about a special election in Georgia. There was one last week in Kansas, and mainstream media all said, oh, the Democrats going to win, and they claimed it was close, but the number was still about 8 percentage points between the two candidates, and
In the Kansas run.
that was in Kansas, and the Republican was actually a political ally, worked for the governor or with the governor. The governor's unpopular. He still won, and now today
Big time he won.
we're hearing that, in other words, I was telling Steve off air, I said, back in 2013, when the government was shut down by Ted Cruz and some of his allies, and everyone kept saying, well, the Republicans are going to pay for this come 2014. And you had a special election or two that went for Democrats. 2014 came along, and the Republicans thumped the opposition. So the NBC crowd over at Morning Joe, they make a lot of noise about this and say, oh, this is a sign that Americans don't like Trump and they don't like Republicans. which is why I guess we outnumber them in such huge. Well, if you look all across the country, it's not just federally, but it's at the state level and the local level. Republicans are pretty much eliminating the Democrats as a political force, yet they can't seem to. They just have to keep telling us that we here in the Beltway bubble, this is what we believe and think. So therefore, you must all think it, and if you don't, you better start thinking it.
That's right. You've got to think this way or else.
So they're campaigning for the Democrat in Georgia, but according to Eric Erickson, his prospects aren't really all that good.
He mentioned that several times. He said, you know,
polling less than Hillary Clinton in the district.
Yes, and Hillary Clinton only got 46% of the vote. Trump got almost 49. So there was, to other offshoots out there, and this is the same district where Mitt Romney defeated Barack Obama by 14 points in 2012, and even John McCain beat Barack Obama by 13 points in 08. So we're talking about a congressional district that is very, very Republican.
These Democrats, and it happened in Kansas too, they're running, though, almost as if they are populist Republicans. That's the other part of this. They're not running as liberal Democrats.
No.
And even if you lose this seat because the guy makes a pitch like that, he's not going to be in the majority. He is still going to be overwhelmingly in the minority.
Totally in the minority. Now, the unusual thing in this Georgia, this is called a special election. The rules are that anybody can run. There will only be one ballot. Everybody's name will be on one ballot. I am assuming that you will be designated as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or a whatever behind your name. But I think there are 18 candidates that are going to appear on the ballot today. So we have this John Ossoff, who is the Democrat, and then
if I had that last name, I'd be looking to change it.
Yeah,
but
go
ahead.
I go to something else. And then we got 17 other candidates. I don't know. In reading this information, I have no clue whether all of them are Republican or most of them are Republican. But there are at least 4 names that I read this morning that are total Republicans that are being pushed real heavily. If in this special election, if one candidate gets 50% plus 1 vote, a very simple majority, it's over. That person won the election and is declared the winner. If nobody gets 50%, then the top 2 no, I said that wrong. The top Democrat vote getter and the top Republican vote getter will have a runoff election. I think they said early June. So at this point in time, they're making such a big deal out of this Democrat guy. He's gonna pull off this marvelous thing. Whoa, look out, everybody!
Because we here at the New York Times know that everybody in suburban Georgia thinks just like we do.
Yes, exactly like we do. So, you can all stay home. He's going to win it anyway, and that's the end of the story. Well, not likely. We probably are going to end up going to a runoff election in early June. It's not likely that one Republican will end up with 50% because they got 15 of them on a ballot. It makes you wonder, what in the world is why are they Republicans? Sometimes we do things that are hard to explain.
We've got a caller with us.
I'll bet we do.
Caller, you're on the air at 8:49 with Steve Millington on KLIX.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Hey, good show as always. I'm a little, I would say, concerned because, you look at Trump, how he's been tweeting out in support of this, how they got to defeat this wacko Democrat. But I look at it as, the work that we could be getting done up in Washington as Republicans, and it seems like the Republican people there in the Congress, they're just kind of, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Midterm elections are coming up, and whether we want to believe it or not as Republicans, there's an awful lot of wacko Democrats that are pissed off, and they're going to do everything they can to take back the House, which I don't think they'll ever do. But I mean, it's going to be tougher, I think, and I sure wish they would get behind the president
Well,
and get some work
there
done.
was a writer this morning who said that Republicans have accomplished so little so far that
Yeah,
they're almost inviting this opposition.
uh, their lack of accomplishment is inviting the opposition, the Democrats, to start taking shots, long balls over the fence, and they've got to get something. They promised and promised and promised they were going to kill Obamacare. Well, kill it. Just kill it. Let's start over. Eric Erickson had an interesting article, and this was clear back in February sometime. And he said, here's how you handle it. You pass a bill that says on December 31st of 2017, Obamacare is null and void. Chunk. It's gone.
Right.
Okay, Congress, you now have 10 months to get a new bill drafted and get it in place so that it becomes operable on January the 1st of 18. And yet, what do they want to do? They don't want to beat up on the Democrats. They want to stand around in a circular uh, uh,
Firing squad.
firing
Yeah.
squad and kill each other. I can't figure that out.
We have another caller. And by the way, the telephone number is 736-0300. Top story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Hey, you guys have got to go to YouTube and look up Brian Lewis. I think my dog is a Democrat. You got to see this.
I think I've seen that one before. Yeah. I think that I have a cat at home that identifies as a Democrat too. Sleeps a lot, eats for free, and and then leaves a mess behind. We've got a couple of other things we wanted to touch on this morning. We have another candidate running for lieutenant governor, although my guess is odds are, even though he's a local guy, that he's a little bit of an outlier in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think he is a considerable outlier in the Republican Party. In fact, if you read through his bio, he ran as a constitutionalist
Right.
in the 2014 election for governor of the state of Idaho. He did run in the 2010 election as a Republican for lieutenant governor in 2010, I think. Yes, and he polled 13% of the total vote in that election. He is you read the bio on him, and he's really considered to be a outlier, even in the Republicans.
More libertarian, I guess, because of that Constitution Party back.
Yes, I think he's much more of a libertarian type background rather than the conservative.
Does he have the money to stand up against some of the other candidates? Because I think Kelly Packer, she's got an entire RV that she's got already wrapped.
Yeah. I don't know anything about his campaign financial situation, and to some extent, you can almost campaign with a real good pickup truck and a couple of boxfuls of flyers. I don't think that's going to work in the lieutenant governor race this year, simply because the primary election is still 13 months away from now, and we already have 4 announced candidates, and the 5th candidate will, in all likelihood, will announce on Tuesday of next week.
On his last day as chairman of the state Republican
Yep.
Party.
That's exactly.
Did you mention any names?
No, yeah, that would be Steve Yates. Let's go ahead and get it out there. So you got Janice McKeon from Idaho Falls,
Right.
and Kelly Packer from McCammon. You got Hagedorn from Meridian. You got this Steve. Come on, Pankey, and you'll have Steve Yates. So the field is crowded already, and you take 5 people in there, and the filing deadline is really not until the middle of March.
Is the field for governor settled yet? Because we've still got 3 Republicans,
No,
and
I
there's still
don't-
some talk that we might see more.
I don't think the governor's race is settled at all. I think we're going to have we've got the 3 names out there already. I still think there's a real good possibility we could get a 4th one. We already do have a 4th one. We have a guy who is he ran against Otter in 14, and he got 1 or 2% of the total vote. So there's no question we're going to have 2 or 3 more entrants into that. But we have got 3 identified, announced, and we still could get a fourth one, I
I
think.
thought it might be Labrador, but I'm getting the impression at this late stage it's not going to
I,
happen.
at this point, I think that that's probably not going to work. I think Labrador will probably retain his seat in the Congress, and that'll be the end of that. So, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. A lot of people complain about him, but he is a strong voice. He's very opinionated. He's not afraid to take a stand on that stuff. Um, there's a few things that I would like to sit down and just drink a soda pop and tell him what I think he's doing wrong. But I doubt seriously he's going to come do that either. But yeah, we got three candidates in the governor's race, and all of them are, I think, real strong
But
candidates.
little because of his position already.
Yep.
Uh, Tommy Alquist is a developer, and obviously Russ Fulcher has a huge lineup of support from people from a couple of years back
Yeah.
that are still behind him.
Well, and keep in mind, Fulcher just barely lost the primary election to Butch Otter in 14. So he is still a force to be reckoned with. He is not going to go away. I don't know how strongly, firmly his campaign finances are, but it's obvious, it's clear that you're going to have a lot of financial muscle to hang on this go round. Alquist has got flyers going out.
I could see where Alquist and Brad Little split some of that more establishment vote, which
Yes,
means Fulcher picks up that more constitutionalist vote.
I think we've got at least those two elements. Fulcher is kind of alone on his side of the road, and then we've got Alquist and Brad Little over here on the
And we
main
should
line.
point out Tommy Alquist will be in studio with us, what, a week from Friday?
Yes, I think it's the
28th.
28th. Yeah, and he will be uh, touring through the Magic Valley on the 27th and the 28th, and I think more information will be forthcoming as to locations and events and so forth. But they've got probably four or five on uh, Thursday, and then they've got three that I know of on Friday, and so it's and as long as we're talking about events coming up on Saturday the 29th, oh boy, I hope that's Saturday. On on that Saturday the 29th, the Jerome County Republicans host their annual uh, they call it a Lincoln Day, but it's their spring Lincoln Fest.
It's like a,
And
like a like what do you call it? A brunch,
a brunch.
right?
They have breakfast at 9 and a speaker at 10. And this year it's going to be at the Spanbauer Ranch, just north of the Pilot truck stop right there on 93. And they always have the brunch is really good, and they always have a good program. So you know, pencil that in along with everything else.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah, we will. Doggone! It seems like the time just goes by faster than we can imagine here, doesn't it?
When 9 o'clock news is next, also, we have Grant Loeb scheduled following the news at 9 o'clock on Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. We're at 50 at 8:59.